When they parked me at the kids' table beside crayons and chicken fingers, I smiled, ate quietly, and rewrote their gift list that night because respect is a ledger, and I balance ledgers for a living daily. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments from where you are watching this video. The ballroom was dressed like a Pinterest board come to life. White draped ceilings, blush uplighting, and enough floating candles to risk a fire code citation. My place card read, Uncle Hal, Kids Table. I stared at it long enough to think it might apologize, but it didn't. They'd wedged me between Ava's students and a nephew still losing baby teeth. He was using a bread roll as a cannon. "You're the math uncle, right?" a little girl asked, pointing her crayon at me. "Accounting," I said. "Math that pays the light bill." She nodded with the confidence of a CEO. Across the room, the adults laughed too loud at a joke I couldn't hear. I stirred my iced tea and let the sugar settle. Ava looked radiant as every bride deserves. Her husband, Chase, had the posture of a man who practiced his smile in mirrors. When he gave a toast, he thanked family old and new without meeting my eyes. He said, "The past belongs in photo albums. Tonight is for the future." The guests cheered like it meant something profound. I checked the seating chart pinned by the door. My name had originally been near the front. A thick black line crossed it out. "Planner's call," the usher said when I asked. Something about balancing energy. I didn't argue. Numbers, after all, don't get offended. They just keep score. Brittany Sloan, the wedding planner, floated by like a commercial in heels. "Everyone comfortable?" she asked, voice dipped in charm. "Kids love when elders keep them calm." I smiled. "Elders appreciate when planners check invoices twice," I said. Her lips pressed into a polite line. "Everything's handled," she said, already turning. "That's what worries me," I murmured. The little boy with the bread cannon giggled. "You sound like my grandpa," he said. "He yells at the TV." "Smart man," I replied. The band started Can't Help Falling in Love, and my table mates threw confetti made from napkins. I adjusted my tie and watched the servers circulate with trays of champagne flutes. My glass stayed empty. I liked keeping my head clear when patterns appeared. Patterns always do. The gift table had 2 tablets propped upright, each showing a QR code on rotating slides. Guests scanned, smiled, and moved on. I noticed the tiny difference. One link ended in .org, the other .gift. Subtle, but numbers and domains share the same truth. Decimals matter. I made a mental note and kept my smile polite. Across the hall, Chase shook hands with a vendor and slipped something into his palm. Looked like a folded check, maybe not his first. The DJ called for the next toast, and everyone turned toward laughter. I leaned back, counting the candles near the bar, building ratios the way other men build grudges. When dinner started, my plate arrived late and missing half the garnish. I didn't mind the missing asparagus, I minded the missing manners. I cut my chicken into quiet equations and listened to fragments of conversation at nearby tables. "Cash registry's genius," one groomsman said. "Guests barely notice." "Right?" another replied. "Everything's digital. People trust buttons more than envelopes." They laughed, the kind of laugh that ends with "bro." My hands stayed still, but my mind filed the line under audit later. The little girl beside me spilled apple juice and gasped. I handed her a napkin. "It's okay," I said. "Accidents tell you where to clean." She nodded, though she didn't know she'd just summarized my career. After dessert, Brittany clapped for attention. "Everyone, scan the QR code on your program to sign our digital guestbook and make a gift," she chirped. Phones lifted like a tech seminar. I scanned mine out of habit. The site loaded slick and quick, with pastel icons for honeymoon fund, first home, and future adventures. I scrolled down to the footer. No bank name, no charity ID, just a line reading "Powered by Kincaid Collective LLC." That was Chase's surname. I smiled so no one would see my pulse change. My niece's photo graced the top of a funnel that led straight to her new husband's company account. The accountant in me whispered, "That's not romance, that's revenue." The kids at my table built a pyramid of empty juice glasses. I pretended to admire it while I screenshotted the registry page. The bottom text flickered for a second. An unsecured redirect link. Sloppy work. I knew I could trace it later from my office. Numbers leave footprints even when pride erases them. "You okay, Uncle Hal?" Ava asked, stopping by between songs. Her kindness hadn't faded. It was just parked behind exhaustion. "Perfect," I said. "You're beautiful, kiddo." She smiled and squeezed my shoulder. "Sorry about the seating," she whispered. "Planner said it balanced the flow." It did, I said. I see everything from here. When the cake arrived, I took one polite bite and slipped out the side door into the corridor. My phone buzzed with texts from colleagues who still owed me favors. I sent one line to Eric Kaplan, my old law school roommate turned attorney. Need quiet eyes on a digital registry. Potential fraud. Tonight. His reply came in 40 seconds. On my laptop. Send URL. Don't touch the back end yet. I sent the screenshot and leaned against the wall, listening to muffled applause from the ballroom. Some men pick fights. I preferred records. Back inside, Chase danced like he owned rhythm in the building. Brittany toasted innovation in weddings, and the crowd clinked glasses like disciples. I watched, calm as a ledger in ink, waiting for the last song. Insults don't always need replies in public. They need arithmetic later. I looked at the program again, the ink already drying on its lie, and smiled to myself. The kids at my table were drawing dragons across placemats. That one breathes fire, one said proudly. Good, I murmured. Sometimes fire's the only way to clean a mess. I stayed put at the kids' table because cover matters when listening. Their crayons scratched cheerful lines while grown-ups traded louder, looser ones. 2 groomsmen drifted to the service door and spoke in quick bursts. Cashback hit yet? The taller one asked, glancing toward the tablets. By midnight, the other said. Chase said the split clears after the batch. The bartender polished a glass and watched their mouths in the mirror. He didn't smile. He did math like I do, only with tips. Brittany floated by and nodded at the tablets like a proud inventor. Frictionless generosity, she told a bridesmaid. People love to tap and go. The bridesmaid asked where the money lands. Brittany said, into experiences, then vanished. I poured water and heard the sound it made against ice. Steady. One groomsman said that Gift Link earned processing perks through Kincaid Collective. That confirmed the corporate name hiding in the footer earlier. They joked about feeding the honeymoon while motioning toward the DJ's booth. I pictured the flow. QR to splash page, splash to gateway, gateway to LLC. Simple, effective, and wrong if not disclosed on the invitation. The little girl beside me drew a castle and asked for more napkins. Castles need strong walls, I said, sliding a stack across the table. She said dragons help, and I agreed more than she knew. Dragons were useful on nights when manners got creative and money tried to hide. I excused myself and walked the long way past the photo booth. Guests posed with cardboard crowns, while a printer coughed strips into a basket. A groomsman with a loosened tie joked into his phone about liquidity. Another asked if the affiliate boost worked better than Venmo links. Their words were plain enough if you've ever read a merchant agreement. Affiliates take a cut, hosts take a cut, brides take home dust. I checked the second tablet and noticed a subtle lag between taps. The progress ring paused a heartbeat before redirecting to the spinner. That pause often means a second hop, trackers, or a hidden pass-through. I filed the sensation like a number you recognize but can't name yet. Near the coat room, a cousin counted envelopes with eyes too bright. He whispered into his sleeve about a post-brunch run and safe hands. The hotel manager walked by, and his face did a tiny frown. He checked the gift table ledger and wrote something with slow care. I liked him more every circuit he made between doors. Back at my seat, a boy asked if accountants fight with swords. Only with receipts, I said. He looked disappointed until I added, receipts are sharper. The band hit an up-tempo number, and Brittany clapped on beat. Chase winked at the DJ and pointed toward the tablets again. People swayed, tapped, and smiled at screens that hid their aim well. I needed one good sentence spoken by someone who knew too much. That sentence arrived from the planner's assistant by the ice sculpture. Did you mirror the registry domains? She asked Brittany, voice a touch naive. Brittany said, yeah, same names, different endings. Guests don't notice. The assistant asked if Ava approved, and Brittany said, she approved the look. That's not consent, that's decoration. The assistant asked about the disclosure line, and Brittany shrugged hard. It's implied by honeymoon fund, she said, rolling her eyes. My hands stayed easy at my sides, but the ledger in my head grew loud. Implied is where bad invoices live and good families bleed later. I drifted to the bar for a seltzer and stood near the mirror. The bartender slid the lime and dropped his voice just enough. You're the numbers guy, he said. Your eyes don't dance. They count. I said I was celebrating and letting the kids teach me patience. He huffed a small laugh and nodded toward the tablets. People think swipe means gift, he said. They don't see door number 2. I asked if anyone complained about failed scans or weird confirmations. One card declined, one double charge, he said, wiping the rail clean. Groom said it's the bank's fraud filter. He rolled his eyes, then hid the gesture with a towel. Useful man, that bartender, careful and exact without getting loud. At the dessert table, 2 bridesmaids compared confirmation emails on their phones. One showed a receipt listing Kincaid Collective LLC as the payee. The other had a receipt naming Ava and Chase Registry Holdings. Same font, same layout, different merchant names. I memorized the template style because patterns reveal printers. A third guest said her grandma asked for a mailing address instead. Old school check, she said, with the memo line for home. Bless grandmas and memo lines, the last honest captions in America. Brittany swept in and told them not to worry about labels. Experience gifts don't need addresses, she said brightly, almost singing. The bridesmaids smiled but looked at each other with slow confusion. Chase's best man cornered a DJ assistant near a light tree. Did you swap the QR on the slideshow after dinner? He asked. The kid said yes, then glanced around like he'd said too much. We boosted the Adventures slide so it rotates faster, he added. The best man said, metrics love momentum, and they fist bumped. I pictured the dashboard Chase would check on his phone tonight. Traffic spikes, conversion rates, and silent dollars moving into private. Buckets. Ava's face sat above it all like a label he rented. I felt heat rise and told it to cool because heat wastes aim. Numbers do their best work when the room thinks you stopped counting. During the bouquet toss, I watched the corner where the planner stored boxes. The assistant slid a small device into a pouch that wasn't hers. I recognized the shape, a cheap mobile hotspot with a battery pack. That explained the lag on the tablet and the flicker in the footer. When the DJ switched songs, the network hopped to a new name. The screen showed GuestNet Events, then blinked to Kincaid Private. Sloppy work, almost bored with its own trick. I took a slow breath and let the anger flatten into lines. Rewriting their gift list wouldn't be vengeance, it would be correction. People deserve the gifts they were promised, not a detour into someone's margin. By last dance, the scheme felt fully mapped in my head. QR mirrors, domain twins, hot-swapped networks, and affiliate cuts layered thin. I didn't need every wire. I needed enough to close the circuit. The kids at my table were sleepy now, crayons slowing into soft loops. One asked if grown-ups ever apologize when they're wrong in public. Sometimes, I said, but they always apologize on paper if the paper is ready. I stacked my chair forward and freed the space behind me. It was time to call Eric, save evidence, and draw the rails. Tonight the castle had dragons. Tomorrow the ledger would breathe fire, but only where needed. I stepped into the hallway, where reception Wi-Fi leaked under the door. My phone still held the earlier screenshot like a pinned specimen. I scanned the program's QR again and watched the spinner hesitate briefly. The first page loaded pretty, then blinked into a different address quietly. I saved the full link and copied the trailing path for later. The gift table tablet showed a slightly different path after the slash. That variance told me someone ran parallel pipes to the same bucket. I opened notes and wrote the 2 endings side by side cleanly. Matching endings tell truth. Mismatched endings tell intent wearing cologne. I breathed once and reminded myself that accuracy outruns outrage every time. The DJ's booth sat empty during the father-daughter dance moment. I checked the slideshow laptop from 3 steps away without touching anything. The rotating QR file used a name that ended .alt2, not final. That meant there was a final somewhere, and this wasn't it tonight. I photographed the file name and the timestamp displayed on the screen. A kid in a headset saw me, shrugged, and kept coiling cables. I asked where the Wi-Fi router sat, and he pointed under the table. 2 SSIDs broadcast, exactly like I saw earlier near the dessert cart. Which network do guests use? I asked, keeping my voice friendly. GuestNet, he said, but the planner switches when streaming hiccups. I returned to the tablets and tried the .org code first carefully. The page thanked me for supporting Ava and Chase's shared dreams. The bottom showed a processor ID I recognized from normal registry platforms. Receipts there usually name the couple, not an unrelated company. I opened the .gift code and waited for its polite smile. The footer named Kincaid Collective LLC again. Same font, different merchant account. The confirmation template matched almost exactly except for that payee line. I screenshotted both and saved them with short, boring file names. Boring file names help when emotions try to knock papers out of order. I kept my face neutral and rejoined the crowd with my facts. Near the courtroom, I caught the planner's assistant counting programs quietly. "You need extras?" I asked, casual as a man asking directions. "We swapped batches after dinner," she said, eyes on the stack. "The early ones printed wrong." I asked what wrong meant, and she moved the pile a fraction. "Brittany likes uniform links," she said. "Some guests scan fast and miss wording." "What wording?" I asked, keeping it mild and unthreatening. "A disclosure blurb," she said, like a student reciting late homework. "Something about processing partners." I nodded like processing partners were dubs released at ceremonies. I found a quiet corner and called Eric with my screen recording. "2 QR flows," I said. "One lands on a normal registry processor. The other lands on the groom's LLC with similar graphics," I added. Eric asked if language clearly disclosed the LLC receiving funds. "No," I said. "The closest text says 'powered by' at the footer." He asked about receipts and merchant names visible to donors. "Mixed," I said. "Some say the LLC, others say a registry holding label." He whistled in that lawyer way that means arithmetic became evidence. "Preserve everything," he said. "We'll argue deception by omission if needed later." "I'll gather logs without touching their hardware," I promised, keeping lines bright. I walked to the lobby's business center and opened the public computer. The hotel kept a printer attached and a fresh ream nearby. I typed the .gif domain into a Hawaii's lookup built for consumers. The registrar hid addresses behind privacy, which told me nothing new. I searched the Secretary of State's public business database cleanly. Kincaid Collective LLC appeared with a recent filing and Chase listed as agent. I printed that page and the filing date in bold for clarity. Then I typed the .org registry platform and printed the processor's policy. Policies matter because they define promises without champagne or speeches. I stapled each set neatly and kept my copies unblemished and square. Back in the corridor, Brittany took a call near the ice machine alcove. "Yes, the conversions jumped after we boosted the adventures slide," she said. "No, donors don't read footers. Stop worrying." She paced, then added a line that tightened my jaw. "We'll reconcile the split Monday," she said. "Chase handles the funnel. I handle the optics." I stepped into view so she would lower her voice properly. "All good tonight?" I asked, friendly as a Midwestern cashier. "Perfect," she said, switching to syrup instantly. "Guests love simple buttons." "And honest labels," I said. She blinked once, then smiled harder like glass learning to bend. "Enjoy dessert," she said, and escaped into music she could control. I sat again with the kids and stacked their crayons into tidy rows. "You organized the rainbow," the little girl said, very impressed. "Helps me think," I answered, which was truer than it sounded. I looked across the room at Ava laughing with her mother gently. She thought the registry meant a future built brick by clean brick. She hadn't seen the side door where margins collect guests' kindness. I lifted my phone and wrote 7 clear bullet points for tomorrow. Scan both codes, save links, print public records, capture receipts, notify platforms, alert bank, brief family. Then I closed the notes and let the band finish the last chorus calmly. Tonight, I stayed the quiet uncle at the kids' table, exactly on purpose. Sunday morning smelled like over-roasted coffee and tired flowers. I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and reread the 7 bullet points from last night. Facts before emotion, always. The receipts were clear. 2 domains, twin pages, 1 innocent and 1 diverting money through Chase's LLC. I loaded both URLs again, taking screenshots every 10 seconds so timestamps would prove sequence. The .org registry showed donations credited to Ava and Chase. The .gift version now redirected to a maintenance page, too late for them to hide. The cache and my screenshots already told the story. I copied both IP addresses, one resolved to a national registry host, the other to a cheap server in Texas under Kincaid Web Ventures. A pattern like that isn't coincidence. It's a paperclip stuck inside a fuse box. Eric called before I finished the first mug. "Morning audit?" he asked. "Morning cleanup," I said. "The redirect's already down." "That's guilt or fear," he said. "Either way, good for us." He explained how to preserve evidence legally, screenshots with timestamps, copies printed and PDF sealed, and a note log describing each action. I followed it exactly, labeling each page with date and time. "We'll contact the payment processor first," he said. "They freeze funds on complaint if misrepresentation shows." "We'll need donors' names," I said. "Registry platforms protect privacy." "We don't need all," he said. "Just 2 examples for pattern proof." Eric never wasted words. Lawyers who've read enough bad contracts don't. I drafted an email to the registry's support address using my CPA letterhead. Tone: neutral, factual, concise. Subject: potential mirror domain misrepresentation. I described the 2 QR codes, the redirect chain, and the merchant name mismatch. I attached the screenshots, the LLC registration, and the event date. Before hitting send, I reread each line to remove any emotional adjectives. Facts, not flavor. The reply arrived faster than I expected. Auto-acknowledgement first, then a human note. "We're escalating to our fraud prevention team. Funds are temporarily held pending verification." That meant the digital faucet just closed. I sent the thread to Eric and underlined one line: temporarily held. It felt like turning off a gas leak before lighting the match. By noon, I phoned Lorraine, Ava's mother. "You might want to keep her off social media today," I said. "Why?" she asked, worry already forming. "Because we're cleaning something that shouldn't have been dirty," I said. I told her gently about the mirrored registry, the LLC, and the processors. Silence hung for 5 full seconds. "She'll break if this hits her cold," Lorraine said finally. "She won't," I said. "She's stronger than he planned for." We agreed to tell her that evening after the brunch wrapped. "I'll keep her busy until you arrive," she said, voice settling into the tone mothers use before storms. I opened a spreadsheet labeled Gift Ledger, corrected. Each column represented the proper registry line items: household goods, honeymoon contributions, charitable donations. I replaced the fake funnel with real vendor addresses and linked a clean registry through the verified platform. Then I wrote an explanatory note in calm accountant prose: funds rerouted directly to the couple's intended account, excluding any third-party entities. It wasn't revenge yet, it was repair. Then came the small satisfaction: reclaiming the digital handles. I registered Ava Ann Chase realregistry.com and redirected it to the legitimate page. I also secured KincaidCollectiveRefunds.com, not for malice, but to ensure no one else used it first. Eric laughed when I texted him the domains. "You think like a prosecutor with Excel," he said. "Habit," I replied. "Ledgers hate empty cells." Next came the message for family and close friends. I drafted it under Ava's name but didn't send it yet. It explained that due to a technical duplication, all registry links were being verified. Donors would receive confirmation directly from the platform. No drama, no accusation, just clean direction. Eric reviewed it and approved. "This keeps her reputation intact," he said. "Let him explain himself later." I printed every copy of evidence and locked them in my office safe. Then I sat back and stared at the stack. Paper, ink, timestamps, quiet proof that math, done right, can defend dignity. That night I walked the quiet streets near my office. Porch lights flickered, sprinklers hissed, the town settling into its routines. Somewhere, Chase probably stared at his dashboard and saw his balance freeze mid-refresh. He'd blame servers first, then Brittany, then bad luck. People like that always run out of alibis before they run out of ego. I didn't plan to humiliate him. I planned to let the facts do that. Tomorrow would be about precision. Who knew? Who paid? Who looked away? I locked my front door, poured a fresh cup, and opened a new document labeled simply Version Control. Action Plan. Version Control started with a choice: fix the pipeline or fight the people. I chose the pipeline because software lies cleaner than faces. I built a single honest landing page that said exactly where money goes. The headline read, "Ava and Chase Registry, direct platform link, no third-party accounts." Below it, I placed one button that led to the verified.org registry. Under the button, a plain sentence lived: payments are processed by the registry platform in the couple's name. No logos I didn't control, no footer tricks, no powered by fluff. I added a second line: if you're receiptless Kincaid Collective LLC, contact us for correction. The page wasn't pretty, it was true, and truth wears simple shoes. Eric called while I reviewed the wording out loud like a stubborn reader. "Keep the sentence about the LLC," he said. "It signals misdirection without a speech." I asked if we should mention the planner by name. "Not yet," he said. "Aim at the conduct, not the people." We drafted 3 bullet points for donors who used the wrong link. 1. Reply to your receipt and request reversal due to mislabeling, I read. 2. Forward the receipt to the registry platform's fraud address. 3. Keep your bank in the loop, he added. Chargebacks speak fluent bank. I thanked him and underlined, conduct, not people, on my pad. Rage needs a leash. Ledgers love leashes. I built a short, clear URL that seniors could type without blinking. Then I printed small cards with the same message and the honest link. The cards weren't glossy. They were readable in poor light and old glasses. I placed a QR on the card but kept the full URL next to it. Trust is seeing the road even if the sign glitches, I told myself. I sent the proof to the hotel manager and asked a simple favor. May I stack these at brunch beside the gift table? I wrote. He called instead of emailing, a choice I respected. We allow family materials if they're transparent, he said. No sales, no vendor fights. Only clarity, I said. I'm allergic to fights. Lorraine and I aligned words for the family text that would go out. We're correcting a registry link today, the draft said. Use the card or the short link. Your gift goes straight to Ava. Lorraine read it twice, trimmed the apology, and kept the dignity. She owes no sorry for being kind, she said. The fix speaks for itself. I asked if we are. Ava should send it or if we should. We send it, she decided. She's busy being a bride at brunch. I could hear coffee drip behind her and imagined the quiet kitchen. Calm kitchens make better messages. I've believed that my whole career. I called the bartender and thanked him for his careful eyes last night. If guests ask about receipts, I said, direct them to me or the manager. He agreed and added a detail that mattered. A few folks griped about odd confirmations, he said. They'll be at brunch. Good, I said. Clarity loves company. I texted the bandleader too, the one who had counted beats while the planner sold frictionless generosity. If anyone asks who handled the slideshow links, I wrote, please tell them the planner made the swap. He replied with a thumbs up and a line. I keep my set list tidy and my answers true. My kind of man, rhythm and receipts in the same pocket. By late afternoon, the registry platform replied with a heavier sentence. We have paused disbursement pending investigation, the email said. They requested contact information for 2 donors to verify mismatched receipts. I reached out to the bridesmaids who compared emails by the dessert table. I'm asking for a favor, I wrote, clear and kind. Your screenshots help the platform fix the pipe. One replied in 4 minutes with both screenshots and permission to forward. The second answered with, I knew something felt off, and attached her receipt. Eric reviewed the set and said the word I wanted to hear. Pattern, he said. That's the word judges here. I built a 1-page cheat sheet titled Gift Fix 5-Minute Guide. It spoke like a nurse giving discharge instructions. Simple, short, and direct. Step 1. Check your receipt for the payee name. Step 2. If it lists Kincaid Collective LLC, use the template below. The template contained 1 clean paragraph citing mislabeling and a request for reversal. Step 3. Forward everything to the registry fraud desk. Step 4. If a bank dispute is needed, we'll walk you through it. Step 5. Keep loving Ava. There's no shame in being generous. I kept the tone warm and the verb strong. People follow steps when their dignity remains whole. Next, I walked the line between fairness and a net. I reserved Ava Monroe registry refunds on 2 major mail providers. Both autoresponders included the short link and the fix guide. I asked Eric if that was too much. It's responsible, he said. You're giving people a clean door home. I called the efficient a steady man who wore quiet like a suit. At brunch, may we make a brief announcement about a corrected link? I asked. No names, just direction. He asked what went wrong in 1 sentence. I gave him one. A mirrored link sent gifts to a company account, not the couple, I said. He sighed kindly. Then we'll guard the table with 1 clear sentence, he said. Brittany texted a broad family thread at dusk about thank you photos tomorrow. Her cheer read like a commercial in a waiting room. She added a line about exciting digital experiences, and my phone warmed. I typed and erased 3 replies before choosing none. The best replies sometimes arrive as paper at the right table. I spent that hour checking the new landing page on an old iPad. If the font was readable there, it would survive the brunch glare. I printed the cards, packed a small box, and wrote my 3 lines on a pocket card. Clarity is kindness. Boundaries are love. Paper tells the truth. It wasn't a speech. It was a guardrail. Before sleep, I walked the plan with Lorraine one more time. You hand the cards to the manager, I said. I stand near the table and answer donors. Ava? She asked. Protected, I said. She cuts cake and opens gifts, no noise. Lorraine breathed out a winter and then steadied. If he argues? She asked, not using his name. We keep voices low and ask the manager to stand with us, I said. No scenes. The pipe, not the people. She whispered the pipe like a prayer and said goodnight. I stared at the ceiling and felt sleep arrive like a well-balanced book. Morning would bring light, coffee, and the sweet sound of plates. The cards would sit beside the gifts like signs on a highway. The officiant would speak one sentence, and the room would choose calm. If Brittany tried to spin, she would spin alone. If Chase reached for a dashboard, he would find a pause he didn't control. I wasn't chasing payback. I was correcting flow. I closed my eyes knowing the difference matters. Revenge can be loud. Repair can be louder without raising a voice. Brunch smelled like coffee, strawberries, and the kind of relief plates bring. I arrived early with the card box, the short link, and steady breath. The hotel manager met me by the gift table with a calm nod. Cards there, announcement after first pour, he said, keeping things tidy. I handed him the small stack and thanked him for yesterday's backbone. He placed them beside the ledger and straightened the sign one more time. The officiant approached, read a card, and practiced the sentence twice softly. One clear line, he said, smiling like a man who likes rails. Lorraine joined us with her quiet that makes crowds behave kindly. Ava's on her way, she said. She's rested and still glowing. Guests filtered in with soft applause and new stories from long drives. The bartender poured orange juice like a metronome, keeping the room honest. The bandleader played a gentle standard that respected conversations without stealing air. I stood near the gift table with my notebook closed and visible. A bridesmaid recognized me and touched my elbow with a quick smile. Do you still need those screenshots? She asked, voice low and ready. Yes, I said. Thank you for helping fix the pipe. She nodded and passed 2 printed copies she'd made on her way. I placed them beneath the ledger and wrote the time in tidy numbers. The table looked like a small courthouse, polite and organized, nothing dramatic. The officiant tapped the microphone and kept his voice warm and brief. Good morning, he said with a nod that welcomed every last chair. A quick note, use the card beside the table for the corrected registry link. He paused and let the quiet accept the words without panic. It routes gifts directly to the couple through the verified platform, he added. If your receipt lists a company, we'll help you correct it. People murmured with surprise but not heat. The sentence did its work. I watched shoulders drop instead of rise. The right kind of reaction. Brittany froze for half a beat, then pasted on her smile. Chase blinked twice at his phone like a dashboard lost its color. Aunt Carolyn approached with a purse that had survived 3 decades of potlucks. My receipt listed some company name, she whispered, careful not to shame anyone. You're fine, I said. We'll reverse it quietly with the platform. She handed me a folded paper, and I matched it to the screenshots. You were redirected through the wrong link, I explained, keeping tone light. The new card fixes that in 1 step. She exhaled the sigh people reserve for honest answers and old knees. I like 1 step, she said. My printer hates drama. We shared the small laugh that seals teamwork without turning it into gossip. She took a card, hugged Lorraine, and went to admire centerpieces. Chase drifted over, wearing charm like a blazer that finally pinched. Uncle Hal, what's with the cards? He asked, voice friendly with strain. Correction, I said, hands open and empty of any accusation. The verified platform link sits here, where everyone can trust it. He smiled wider, then smaller, then flatter, as if options ran out. You're confusing guests, he said. They shouldn't worry about tech at brunch. They shouldn't, I said. That's why the corrected link asks nothing extra. Brittany joined us with a clipboard she treated like a crown. We handled the registry, she said. The messaging hurts momentum. The manager stepped closer like a good wall. The message is clarity, he said calmly. Momentum is not a policy. 2 groomsmen hovered by the pastry tower, whispering about confirmation emails. One scrolled his phone and frowned, then showed me kindly without attitude. Mine says Kincaid Collective, he said. His says Ava and Chase. I thanked them for checking and pointed to the line on the card. If your receipt lists the company, forward it to the platform's team. They nodded, surprisingly grateful for instructions that respected their time. What about cash? One asked. eyeing the locked box with new respect. Cash stays cash, I said. The ledger logs it and the couple thanks you. The manager added, we're counting every 30 minutes. And they relaxed further. People like seeing rails before they drive. It makes the steering smoother. Ava entered to applause that sounded like sunshine finally arrived on schedule. She hugged relatives, squeezed friends, and didn't look toward the table yet. Lorraine intercepted her with a gentle touch and a brighter smile. Enjoy bacon first, she said, deflecting questions like a seasoned nurse. I kept my distance because protection sometimes means staying out of a hug. The officiant guided her toward the head table where simple flowers waited. Brittany tried to reach her with a binder and a cheerful wave. The manager intercepted politely and asked Brittany about vendor gratuities. She pivoted, distracted by numbers that didn't belong to guests anymore. The room breathed easy, which is how correction should feel when done right. Eric arrived in a jacket that said Sunday and a folder that said Court. He shook my hand, took one card, and walked the perimeter quietly. Any noise? He asked, voice low as a librarian's reminder. Only questions, I said, and we like those. He checked the ledger, glanced at the screenshots, and nodded once. The platform froze disbursements, he said. They'll push refunds for misdirected gifts. We'll need 2 donors for declarations, he added. We already have them, I said, tapping the prints. He smiled the way lawyers smile when the road chooses asphalt over gravel. Then brunch will be calm, he said. Lunch may not be. Chase's best man marched up with shoulders that thought they could move tables. We're fixing this offline, he said, breath warm with hurry. Take the cards down. No, the manager said. Not unkind, not loud, just decided. The best man looked at me for an argument he could win quickly. We're preventing confusion, I said. The platform appreciates prevention. Eric stepped forward and spoke one sentence that changed the angle. Funds are paused pending verification, he said. Any interference looks bad later. The best man blinked, hesitated, and sagged into an awkward grin. Enjoy brunch, he said finally, backing away like a forklift retreating. The gift opening started with a ribbon that didn't fight back. Ava read notes, laughed softly, and thanked people like gratitude was oxygen. When an envelope produced a printout with the company payee, she paused. Lorraine touched her wrist, and the officiant repeated the sentence kindly. Use the card for the corrected link, he said. We're making sure gifts land with the couple. Ava looked at me, and I nodded once. Nothing dramatic, just steady. She smiled at the room and said, Thank you for loving us clearly. The guests clapped because integrity can be beautiful when it isn't loud. Chase stared at the printout like it changed languages while he blinked. Brittany tried one last pivot near the microphone with a smile sharpened thin. Friends, our digital partner streamlined giving for your convenience, she began. Please ignore any confusing messages. Eric raised a hand slightly and waited for the room to settle. A correction protects everyone, he said, tone patient as Sunday school. Please use the verified link on the card today. The manager nodded, the bandleader strummed, and the moment moved on. Guests lined up for seconds and brought back stories from road trips. The room chose calm over spin because calm had better instructions. I felt my shoulders lower to where they belonged on reasonable mornings. The bartender leaned over and set a seltzer by my notebook. You kept this easy, he said, voice grateful like a clean bar towel. You kept it honest, I answered. That makes easy possible. He nodded toward Chase, who stared at his phone like it owed him. He just learned the difference between dashboards and doors, the bartender said. I took a drink and watched Ava open a simple toaster. She laughed, hugged the aunt, and promised waffles for everyone next month. That's what gifts are for. Small promises that become real breakfasts later. We had repaired the pipe. The water ran where it should again. The gift opening moved along like a well-tuned checkout line until the third envelope. Ava pulled out a printout that listed Kincaid Collective LLC as the payee, and the room hiccuped. Lorraine steadied her hand and gave me a small nod that meant, now. I stepped closer, not dramatic, just present, and set a card with the corrected link beside the stack. We'll make sure this route's right, I said, keeping my voice easy. Ava smiled at the guests the way nurses smile before they change a tough dressing. Thank you for loving us clearly, she said, and the room softened. Brittany reached for the mic with a sugary smile that trembled. Friends, please ignore any confusing wording on receipts, she said, glossing the edges. Eric raised one hand slightly and waited for the murmur to rest. We have verified links on the table, he said, calm as Sunday school. If your receipt lists a company, forward it to the platform. They will correct. Chase shifted, checked his phone, and tried on his best grin. It's a modern registry, he said, looking for laughs. Some processors look different. The bartender coughed into a napkin and pretended to clean a glass harder. The manager stood near the ledger and watched the room like a steady lamppost. A bridesmaid walked up with her printed receipt and laid it next to the first. Mine says the company too, she said, more puzzled than angry. Another guest followed, then a third, building a neat small pile of proof. The music thinned to background, like even the band chose to listen. Brittany's pen clicked 3 times like a tiny alarm she couldn't hide. This is a standard partner pipeline, she said, voice bright and fast. Everyone benefits from efficiency. Who is everyone? I asked, still friendly. Define it in 1 sentence. She blinked and held her clipboard like a shield she forgot how to use. The couple benefits from a seamless experience, she said, dodging the question by an inch. Eric opened his folder and pointed to 2 screenshots. 2 domains, twin layouts, different merchants, he said. No clear disclosure on the page or program. Chase leaned in with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Powered by his disclosure, he said. People don't read footers? Courts do, Eric replied, not raising his voice. The room didn't clap. It just understood the sentence had weight. Aunt Carolyn shuffled forward with purpose and kindness in the same step. I gave because I love my niece, she said. I want my receipt to say her name. Guests nodded like pews agreeing to a short hymn. Brittany tried to spread sugar over concrete. We'll reconcile the split Monday, she said a little too fast. Reconcile what split? The manager asked, tone even and professional. Our contract promised transparent handling of guest gifts. He turned to the assistant. Did you swap the slideshow QR after dinner? The assistant looked at the floor, then the ceiling, then at Honesty. Yes, she said. Brittany said conversions jump if we boost the adventures slide. Brittany's smile hardened like a sticker peeling off the wrong box. Industry best practice, she said. Metrics love momentum. Chase stepped closer to Ava with his explanation already rehearsed. Babe, it's still us, he said, hands up. The LLC is just a funnel. Ava didn't flinch. She held the printout like a chart. You built a funnel with my face on it and your name at the deposit, she said. That isn't us. His best man tried to help and made it worse. It's a timing thing, he said. Funds sweep later. Eric shook his head once, slow and final. Funds are paused, he said. The platform froze disbursements pending review. The bartender set down a tray and added the smallest truth. 2 guests got double charges last night, he said. I comped their drinks so they wouldn't feel dumb. People didn't get angry. They got clear. The manager produced the planner contract like a quiet mirror. No undisclosed third-party processors, he read. No domain substitution without written approval. He looked at Brittany, not cruel, not shaky. Do you have written approval? She swallowed, then tried a new lane. Verbal consent at the rehearsal, she said. Lorraine lifted her chin and kept her voice level. We discussed flowers and seating, she said. We did not approve a company account. The assistant, Ajina, nodded, pale now, and added 1 more clean brick. Ava approved the look, she said, not the path. That sentence did more work than a shout ever could. Chase stared at his phone as if a refund button might appear by need alone. Eric closed his folder and spoke like he was reading a calm weather report. Here's what happens next, he said. Guests who use the company link will receive reversals. He gestured to the cards. Use the verified link if you still wish to gift. He turned to the manager. We'll need a brief written statement about the QR swap. The manager nodded, already half done in his head. You'll have it by afternoon, he said. Brittany tried 1 last spin and found no traction left. This ruins the vibe, she said weakly. Ava looked at the room, then back at the stack of receipts. Honesty is the vibe, she said, and the room relaxed like a shoulder freed from a knot. We stacked the misdirected receipts, logged contact info, and thanked each donor for patience. No one shouted. They lined up like neighbors after a storm, ready to help. The band played a bright standard that sounded like a broom on a clean floor. Chase drifted toward the exit with his best man in tow and new gravity in his gait. Brittany lingered by the dessert table, then made herself small behind a centerpiece. The officiant closed the book and blessed brunch for calm hearts and clean paths. I stood beside Ava and handed her the corrected ledger like a repaired railing. You'll get every gift promised, I said. In your name, to your home. She nodded once, steady and grateful without drama. The room moved on to coffee, thank yous, and plans for real breakfast with a new toaster. The parking lot baked under noon sun, and tempers dried with it. The hotel manager walked beside me, calm as a ledger balancing late. Chase stood near the valet lane, pacing circles small enough to squeak. His best man hovered, then checked the door like backup might appear. Brittany clutched her clipboard the way rookies clutch flotation cushions on boats. The manager radioed security with a tone that expected quick, polite service. "We'll keep this professional," he said, eyes steady as a plumb line. I nodded and kept my hands visible and empty for everyone's comfort. Eric joined us, jacket open, folder under one arm, voice already measured. "We speak once, clearly, and never chase," he said softly, and I agreed. Chase started with charm because charm is his first and last tool. "Uncle Hal, let's reset," he said, palms up like a talk show guest. "You made brunch weird, but we're family, and optics matter today." "Optics are mirrors," I said, keeping volume low and sentences exact. "Mirrors show what you built, not what you wished existed." He frowned, then pointed at the hotel where Ava still hugged guests. "She doesn't need scenes," he said, trying to claim concern like a coupon. Then, "Stop making them," Eric said. "Funds are paused, and guests have instructions." Brittany cut in, voice sugar sticky and quick as advertising slogans. "We'll reconcile Monday," she said. "There's a partner split, and you're confusing people." The manager lifted a hand, ending commercials and beginning policy again. Security arrived like adults entering a room filled with avoidable mistakes. 2 officers stepped from a city cruiser, hats squared, patience visible and ready. "Talk us through the issue," the senior officer said, pen already poised. The manager summarized the QR swap and the contract clause without adjectives. Eric added the paused disbursements and mislabeling receipts in clean, short lines. "We're keeping peace and documentation," he said, and the officer nodded once. Brittany claimed vendor discretion, then deflated when asked about written approvals. "Verbal consent at rehearsal," she tried again, and the manager calmly denied it. The junior officer photographed the cards and the ledger, careful with angles and shadows. Chase's grin cracked into something small, and his eyes hunted exits. "It's our registry," he said, still pushing the word "our" uphill alone. "The LLC is just plumbing, and plumbers get dirty for families." "Plumbing hides nothing in this county," Eric said. "Our pipes come with permits." Chase stepped closer and lowered his voice to something like sincerity. "Babe will forgive this," he said, looking at us like we were her. "She knows hustle, and she wants our life bigger than coupons." The older officer tilted his head and wrote the word hustle into his notebook. "Bigger doesn't excuse mislabeled payees," I said, steady as quiet shop machinery. "Guests buy toasters, not metrics, and they deserve the names promised." Brittany stared at her clipboard, which finally stopped pretending to be armor. The manager faced Brittany with the same voice he used to prevent kitchen fires. "Your contract is breached," he said, even and precise, not angry. "We're terminating services effective immediately, pending settlement of vendor balances." Her assistant swallowed hard and handed over the hotspot like a borrowed lie. "She said speeds mattered," the assistant murmured, barely audible, not defensive now. The officer logged the device and the SSID names without chasing blame. "If you need statements for civil court, request them through counsel," he said. Eric nodded and handed his card with the calm of a Saturday mechanic. "We'll keep this clean," he said. "Calm helps memory. Memory helps truth." The best man drifted backward as if learning distance might finally be wisdom. Ava stepped outside then, not hurried, not frightened, simply deciding to stand. Lorraine flanked her with tilt-proof calm, chin set, eyes clear as dishwater. Ava looked at Chase, looked at the clipboard, then looked at me gently. "Is the pipe fixed?" she asked, giving dignity to work rather than drama. "It is," I said. "Gifts root straight and misdirected ones will return." She nodded once and let a breath go that had been holding weeks. "Chase," she said, voice firm, level, and kind like a good nurse. "You used my face as a label and your company as a bucket. That's not partnership," she added. "That's a siphon." The word hung accurate and heavy, and no one dared clean it with jokes. He tried one last pitch because salesmen always carry leftover hope in pockets. "I wanted us to start strong," he said, palms pleading, tone thinning. "Momentum matters when you're building anything worth living inside." "Foundations matter more," Ava answered. Momentum breaks ankles when the ground lies. He blinked, swallowed, and glanced at Brittany for a rescue discount. She had none left. Her clipboard now looked like a fine for littering. Lorraine stepped forward and gave a sentence that set rails perfectly. "You may not contact Ava about funds, gifts, or accounts," she said. "Any questions go through Eric." The senior officer nodded once, approving the clarity with sovereign efficiency. Eric delivered next steps without venom, because venom wastes focus and ink. "You'll receive a demand letter by email today," he said, tone professional. "It will include restitution, chargeback assistance, and a non-interference clause." Chase blew a laugh that sounded like a hose kinked by a tire. "It's brunch, not court," he said, shrugging, still trying jokes on gravity. "Court is where pressure wanders when it ignores polite rooms," Eric said. "Choose your door." The manager asked if Chase wanted to retrieve personal items from inside. 5 minutes, accompanied by staff, he offered, building mercy into policy sensibly. Chase stared at his shoes, then pocketed the only courage he could carry. He took the escort, gathered his jacket, and left the ring on a chair. No speeches, no grand gestures, just a small silence learning its edges. Brittany packed cables like strings of regret and avoided every useful eye. The officers logged their file number and left with a hat tip of courtesy. Guests drifted to their cars, heavier but steadier, holding clarity like groceries. Ava leaned against the brick and let the sun warm her shoulders. "I hate that this happened," she said softly, not inviting pity from anyone. "But I love that it's simple now." "Simple travels farther," I said, and the words finally felt earned. We walked back inside for coffee, where receipts waited for the last signatures. Monday felt like a spreadsheet turned courtroom. Eric drafted the demand letter with his usual clean verbs and short nouns. "Restitution for all misdirected gifts within 10 business days," the first line read. "Written notice to donors confirming reversals," the second required. "Cease and desist from any use of mirrored domains," the third finished. He added a proposed consent judgment, which is a court order both sides sign. It becomes a fast hammer if someone backslides later without fresh hearings. I read each clause aloud and made sure every number matched the evidence. "No revenge language," Eric said. "Just rails and dates." We attached screenshots, the planner contract clause, and the hotel manager's statement. Then we hit send and let the clock start doing honest work. Chase hired a lawyer who liked phone calls more than emails. He opened with warmth and then went straight to discounting the facts. "This was a misunderstanding," he said. "The LLC was a temporary pass-through." Eric kept his tone low and precise, like a machinist measuring twice. "Mislabeling donors' receipts is deception," he said. "The processor froze funds for cause." The lawyer tried a softer ask about a quiet settlement with no scorched earth. "There's no earth to scorch," Eric said. "We're gardening." He outlined terms: full restitution, verified by the platform, a written apology to donors, non-interference with chargebacks, and a 1-year no contact about money with Ava. "Add attorney's fees," I said, not loud. Eric added them, modest and fair. The lawyer sighed like a tire losing air and asked for the afternoon. Brittany's email arrived next with a headline about industry norms. She claimed "powered by" counted as disclosure, and "adventures slide" was harmless optimization. The hotel manager replied before Eric could, quoting the contract again. "No undisclosed third-party processors," he wrote. "No domain substitution without written approval." He copied her boss and attached the hotspot log. Brittany pivoted to regret within 3 sentences and offered to waive her fee. Eric asked for more. Written vendor notices admitting the swap and promising cooperation. "And rescind any affiliate claims tied to last night," he added. She agreed quickly, like someone hearing a door click behind her. I saved the thread and felt my shoulders lower a notch I hadn't noticed. By mid-afternoon, the registry platform finished its review. "Misdirected transactions will be reversed within 3 business days," the email said. "Disbursement to the verified registry proceeds after reversals." They attached a list of affected donors by initials and amounts, nothing gossipy. Eric forwarded it to Chase's counsel with the consent judgment draft. "These numbers govern restitution," he wrote. "Your client signs or litigates." The lawyer called again, voice less glossy than noon. "We'll stipulate to the reversals," he said. "We request mutual non-disparagement." "Agreed," Eric answered, "so long as truth to donors remains free." He then described a simple safeguard: an escrow for any disputed amounts, released on proof. The line held. The lawyer nodded through the phone. We met at Eric's office for signatures, no drama, no lobby speeches. The conference room smelled like coffee and new paper, my favorite courthouse perfume. Ava sat beside Lorraine, posture straight, hands calm, eyes clear. Chase arrived with his lawyer, in a suit that wanted yesterday back. He looked at the consent judgment like it might blink and change politely. Eric summarized in 7 sentences because precision saves oxygen. You acknowledge misdirected receipts, he said. You cooperate with reversals and chargebacks. You pay attorney's fees in a capped amount, he continued. You do not contact Ava about funds or gifts for 1 year. Any breach converts this agreement into enforceable judgment without new trials. Chase's lawyer requested a payment schedule on fees. Eric offered 2 dates, not 12. Chase signed with a hand that forgot swagger and remembered ink. Ava asked for 1 line that mattered more than money. Donors receive a written apology from both of you, she said, looking at Chase and Brittany's empty chair. The lawyer hesitated, then agreed to a short factual note approved by Eric. No spin, Ava said. Just thanks and correction. She signed the receiver's acknowledgement, not hungry for victory, just hungry for clean. Lorraine watched each page and smiled only when the notary's stamp landed. That's the sound of doors closing, she whispered, and I believed her. When the last page turned, Eric slid copies across the table like repaired tools. We'll file the stipulation with the court and circulate donor letters by Friday, he said. No further contact outside counsel, he added, calm as clinic discharge. Brittany joined separately to sign her termination and vendor notices. Her pen moved fast until it reached 1 sentence about refunds of her fee. Paid within 5 business days, she read, then looked up for mercy. Within 3, Eric corrected, and the hotel manager nodded. She signed and left a box of branded QR cards on the credenza, suddenly shy. The manager photographed the box for the record, then tossed it gently into recycling. That's what bad funnels deserve, a quiet bin and a new policy line. He promised to add static links only to future contracts and smiled like a man who just tightened a bolt. Small fixes prevent long storms. Buildings and families learn this the same way. That evening, we sent the donor message from a neutral address with calm words. Your generosity means the world, it began. Some receipts listed a company. Those transactions are being reversed. The next line pointed to the verified registry and thanked them for patience. Replies came back brighter than I expected. Relief, kindness, a few jokes. One uncle wrote, "Glad the toaster money isn't buying metrics," and included a winking face. I logged each confirmation and watched the ledger settle into tidy columns. Numbers quieted like machines cooling after a long shift. Ava read a few replies and put her phone down on purpose. "I'm done counting," she said. "Tonight I'll just be grateful." Grateful is the grown-up word for victory, I said, and poured the coffee. We closed the loop with one last protection, domain locks on the verified links. Eric filed a simple notice with the court attaching the consent judgment. Injunction by stipulation, he said, which means the stop sign is now bolted. The registry confirmed funds would clear to Ava within the week, minus corrected fees. The hotel added a line to its training manual about QR oversight, a change I liked. Chase sent the required apology that evening, short, clean, without excuses. I misdirected receipts, it read. Reversals are underway. I'm sorry. It wasn't poetry. It was a receipt in sentence form. Sometimes that's the only literature families need. When the inbox finally slowed, I walked out into a blue hour that felt earned. The town hummed the way small towns do when supper's almost ready. Lorraine called to say roast would be at 6 and laughter would be mandatory. Ava texted a photo of the toaster on the counter like a small trophy. Waffles next month, she wrote. No QR codes, promise. I smiled and locked my office, letting the file rest where finished work sleeps. Justice hadn't shouted, it had balanced. That's still my favorite sound. 2 Saturdays later, the house smelled like waffles, coffee, and new beginnings. The toaster sat proud on the counter, a small trophy that meant honesty. Lorraine whisked batter while Ava set plates at the big dining table. I unfolded cloth napkins and checked the chairs like a foreman loves rails. We're using the grown-ups table today, Ava said, smiling without apology. Good, I answered. We earned adult chairs the old-fashioned way, through clarity. We ate slow, butter melting into squares, syrup tracing patient, tidy lines. After breakfast, Eric arrived with a folder and a grin that wasn't performative. "No speeches," he said. "Just signatures, simple and clean." We moved to the table and let paper finish what feelings already knew. Eric reviewed the final letters the registry platform sent to generous guests. Each message thanked them, confirmed reversals, and linked the verified page directly. Replies kept arriving with warmth instead of the sharpness people fear online. A bridesmaid wrote that good rails made her want to gift twice. An uncle joked the toaster deserved a parade down Maple Street next month. I logged the last confirmations with dates, then closed the spreadsheet for good. "Finished files live here," I said, sliding the folder into the cabinet. Lorraine nodded, relief smoothing years I hadn't noticed sitting on her shoulders. "Quiet is a beautiful sound when families stop bracing," she said. We all agreed and let the room breathe without counting. The hotel manager stopped by on his break carrying a thank you envelope. Inside, a note promised new policies on QR oversight for future events. He mentioned static links, vendor disclosures, and a second attendant at every gift table. "We learned a lot without breaking anything that couldn't be repaired," he said. I shook his hand and told him good policies are a kind of kindness. The bartender sent a postcard that simply read, "Rails matter. Toasters forever." The bandleader texted a photo of a tidy set list titled "Honesty Standard." Institutions change when people quietly decide waste is expensive and clarity pays. We stood by the doorway and watched sunlight stretch across the kitchen tiles. Calm filled the corners, the way water finds level grounds naturally. That afternoon, Ava asked for a simple budgeting check, not a lecture. We opened a fresh notebook and sketched 3 buckets on one clean page. "Home, savings, experiences," she said, keeping her voice even and hopeful. "Each has rails, and we won't borrow feelings from any bucket." I added a 4th circle titled "Gifts Forward," small but steady like pocket change. She liked that line because gratitude travels better when scheduled and practical. We set up a boring automatic transfer to build an emergency cushion. "Boring saves futures," I said, and she drew a square around that sentence. Lorraine brewed tea and listened the way nurses listen before giving medicine. Gentle structure replaced the adrenaline we had carried for too long. Evening brought family, neighbors, and a table that finally fit everyone comfortably. We served roast chicken, summer corn, and the exact pickles Ava's dad loved. People brought pies that told stories about porches, fairs, and old-fashioned shortcuts. Nobody mentioned dashboards, funnels, conversions, or any of yesterday's dressed-up excuses. Instead, they asked about jobs, gardens, and whether the coffee grinder needed replacing. I watched Ava move through the room, balanced, careful, and entirely herself again. Chase sent his apology earlier, short and clean, without a single begging adjective. Brittany returned vendor fees promptly, then disappeared into a quieter corner of her field. The town read the room and decided decency sold out every seat tonight. We ate, laughed, and let heavy air replace itself with something finally breathable. After dessert, Ava clinked her glass once and kept her remarks short. "Thank you for loving us clearly," she said, voice steady as a good pulse. "Your gifts landed safely, and your patience repaired what pride tried breaking." People nodded, grateful for leadership that asked nothing and promised only honesty. She hugged Lorraine, then hugged me with the grip nurses save for giants. "You sat me at the grown-ups table when I forgot my seat," she said. I shook my head and corrected the record exactly where it mattered. "You stood up and pulled the chair out yourself," I answered, smiling. The room warmed and stayed quiet, the best applause I've learned to love. We stacked plates, wiped the table, and let the dishwasher sing a civilized lullaby. Later, Eric and I sat on the porch, counting crickets instead of problems. "Clean settlements feel like good bearings," he said, stretching his Sunday shoulders. "They spin quiet and keep machines from chewing themselves to pieces." I told him the story didn't become revenge the way movies would prefer. He agreed, then said revenge often masquerades as repair when paperwork gets lazy. "You chose repair with teeth," he added. "That's grown-up work." We watched the streetlights flicker on in their usual dependable order. "I'll take dependable over dazzling every night," I said, meaning each plain word. He left with a wave, and the porch took back its ordinary peace gently. When the house settled, I opened the window and found the night humming. The toaster light glowed soft on the counter like a small honest beacon. I thought about the kids' table and the crayons drawing castles without fences. Then I thought about doors, locks, rails, and the way adults build rooms. Respect is a ledger that remembers entries long after parties forget promises. Balance comes when numbers match stories, not when stories bully numbers. I turned off the kitchen light and let the ledger rest quietly. Tomorrow would bring coffee, receipts, and another chance to keep things tidy. Before I slept, I raised a glass of water to the simplest resolution, to toasters, rails, and grown-ups' tables, I said, and smiled into the dark, to families who choose quiet repairs over loud excuses. The refrigerator hummed like a choir that knows every honest note already. I closed my eyes, thanked the math for staying loyal, and finally rested. The house didn't need guarding. The rails we built would watch overnight. Morning would find us hungry and unafraid, which is how good futures start. If you enjoyed this story and learned something from it, give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful life lessons.